Hey everyone. Welcome to Culture Binge, where we feast on the zeitgeist and lovingly regurgitate it for you, our dear listener. I'm your host, Alec. I'm the managing editor here at Wisecrack. I'm here with researcher and enunciator-in-chief, Surbhi.
Hello.
And our swampy sweetheart, he's damp, he's from Florida, Michael Burns, PhD.
Yay. I got sweaty halfway here, and I had to take the layer off that I was wearing because I thought I was cool enough.
Oh, I'm so sorry.
Do what you do.
Anyway, this is a quick reminder. So we're kind of weirdly in the middle of a season break, but we're coming back just for this one episode. But afterwards, we'll be on break until mid-January, maybe late January. We'll see how things play out, but can't wait for the new episodes we're going to bring you there. In the absence of Surbhi's flawless articulation, you could leave us a review and say something nice on Apple Podcast or wherever you're listening. I don't know. We've got a lot of cool stuff to talk about today. Michael's going to talk about the Spotify yearly wrap, or decade wrapped, whatever it's called. Surbhi's got a topic on growth mindset, and I'm going to talk about Chevy getting a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. But it's that time, everyone. What's lifting our spirits and what's dragging them right back down? What slaps and what chaps our ass? Michael.
Cool. Since this is our last episode of the year officially, I'll fold in a little year-end goodness here. What slaps, I think, in general, is the movies in the second half of 2019. 2018 was a pretty garbage year for films. I think when we look back at the Oscars from that year, years from now, we're going to laugh. The first half of this year was pretty rough, but I think the second half of the year has been really exceptional, and there's still some great stuff to come. Shouts for everyone who's excited about Uncut Gems. So it's been really great, and I'm excited about it. I won't get into the specifics. What chaps is this is also movie related, the online discourse about Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. It's so insufferable. The movie is not out yet. Let's all just chill for a second.
Wait, what is I think as someone who's chronically online, I think I've missed most of this.
Oh, you're so lucky. Well, I mean, there's been tons of discourse in general. The thing that came up yesterday was in some interviews, both John Boyega and Daisy Ridley kind of threw shade at Rian Johnson for The Last Jedi, which I do think is slanderous because The Last Jedi is the best Star Wars movie of this recent run. And yeah, so they were kind of shitting on Rian Johnson. There was some discussion about how they were excited to be back with J.J. Abrams to like tie the story up. So a lot of the discourse online was either A, Rian Johnson is great, they should shut up, which is like kind of true, but maybe let's not shit on actors. And the other half of it was people being crapping on Last Jedi, saying they're excited for J.J. Abrams to wrap up the story he started. And then the worst part about all of this...
Has J.J. Abrams ever successfully wrapped up a story?
No, and he said in an interview, I'm not good at endings. So like, we're all waiting for him to end a 9-movie film saga that's older than most of us, and he's just out here saying things like, I'm not good at endings. Like, way to instill faith and confidence in us. I mean, it's still going to make $1 billion regardless, but yeah, I'm just sick of it. I wish we could all stop talking about it. The movie's coming out in like almost a week. Let's just see what happens.
Yeah, maybe it'll be good. Maybe it'll be dog shit. Who knows? I don't know. I don't have a lot of thoughts either way.
Yeah, that's it for me.
I'm super excited about Star Wars, but I try not to read anything or look at anything, and I don't think I've even seen the trailers because I don't want anything to be spoiled for me.
That's smart. Something in the trailers has made me upset for weeks, so please don't look at them.
Sorry, what in the trailer made you...
Well, I don't want to tell Surbhi.
Surbhi earmuffs now.
Yeah. I bet it's the same thing that made everyone else upset. Seeing something that indicates... Never mind, I can't say it. I want to keep Surbhi's ears pure.
All right.
I'll tweet about it later.
Yeah. Tweet about
Follow you on Twitter.
Block him.
Yeah, block him just for a couple days. What's going on in your life, Surbhi?
So what chaps is that we haven't had Culture Binge in a few weeks, and I've really missed it.
Oh, I missed you.
There were so many stories where I was like, oh, this would be interesting to talk about, or like moments where I was like, oh, I wonder what Michael is doing and how his sweating issue is coming along, and what is Alec up to, and how's his cat. So I missed everyone.
Is there a quick list of like stories For me, I wish we could have talked about the Peloton ad, but like, do you have a couple of?
So that was one where I was like,
Yeah.
oh, this would have been interesting to talk about.
Yeah.
There were a couple of others, like random, like the banana that happened last week.
The Art Basel thing?
Yeah,
That was
that
great.
was kind of like weird. And then there was like the follow-up where the guy ate the banana. So
That was awesome.
I wanted to talk about that. So I'm really glad we're back, and I'm glad we're coming back in January. And then what slaps is that I have 3 weeks off starting next week from work. So I'd love to hear everybody's recommendations for their favorite movies, books, and television shows of this year. So this way I can sit on the couch, eat my gluten-free cookies from Trader Joe's, and binge watch everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I say quickly as well before we move on, because Alec referenced this, for anyone listening who hasn't read it yet, Alec wrote a great piece on the Peloton ad on Medium. He's not a self-promotional guy, but it was really good. So go to Wisecrack's Medium, read Alec's Peloton piece, and he can just shyly be like, whatever, no, it's not good.
Thanks. Yeah, I feel grimy every time I self-promote anything I do, which I have done on here.
Yeah, it's gross.
But whatever, it's not good. As far as me, so what slaps? I got Pokemon Sword and Shield. Well, just the sword version. It's awesome. I'm really into Pokemon too much for a 30-year-old man. But I think they fixed a lot of things that have been historically like not great about the Pokemon series. So that's it. I've been spending way too many hours doing that. And then what chaps my ass? I think I'm. People are going to cancel me for this. Maybe. I don't like The Mandalorian. I feel like society's gaslighting me and I'm not hating on anyone who likes it. I'm not like you're all stupid and I'm smart. That's not what I'm saying. There's just certain, like, some Star Wars movies. I'm like, oh, it's not like, it's fine, whatever, but I get why people really like it. I don't get why people like it. I'm also not anti-Star Wars. Rogue One, great. All the other movies, great. Saw all the terrible prequels when I was a kid and enjoyed those as a kid. But I think like having a protagonist that barely talks can sometimes work. Ron Swanson barely talks. He likes silence. Great character. The Revenant, Leonardo DiCaprio barely talks. Compelling story. But he wears a mask too. That can also work. Iron Man, etc. Darth Vader. But I just don't care, and I don't understand why people care. I understand why Baby Yoda's cute, because he is. But that's about it. So if you do like the show and want to send a not hate-filled reason about what I'm missing that other people love so much, please do. And if you also, like me, don't understand why everyone loves it, maybe we can start a support group, and you should email us for that as well.
Wow. Can I ask, do you like Westerns at all?
I'm not anti-Western. I'm like, didn't grow up on a bunch of John Wayne movies or anything.
Yeah. No, I only ask because I do like The Mandalorian, but I am a big Western fan, and I think it taps into something cool about that tradition, which I found very enjoyable. Just trying to think about reasons to like it. But I think the reasons, as someone who likes it, I think the reasons you give are reasonable. And I have struggled myself thinking, like, when is he going to take the helmet off? And they teased us a couple episodes ago because an attractive widow was trying to take his helmet off, but then she got stopped.
I'm really looking forward to watching it. I haven't seen it. I'm too cheap to buy the streaming service, so I'm going to wait until all of the episodes are out and then get the free trial and binge it.
Smart. So smart.
It's like so cheap. It's the cost of like a coffee with 2 editions.
Is it?
Yeah, it's like $5.99.
Oh, no way. I thought that it was like more than that.
No, their whole thing is they're trying to undercut everyone else right now. They're going to raise it at some point, but yeah. I'm just saying,
then I'll pay for
treat
that.
yourself.
I thought for some reason it was like...
Or someone Venmo Surbhi enough money so she can do it as a treat for all the work she does on this
Dude
podcast.
vibes.
Yeah, we're student vibes. I love that guy. Yeah, so I feel like Westerns have more going on under the surface, and I think my complaint is nothing is going on under the surface, which as a Wisecrack person is not great to me. But also, I don't need like big, deep messages to every little thing, like Fast and Furious, great franchise, love it, but even they got, Dude Abide just donated.
That guy's sick.
Yeah, Dude Abide wants us to do something on young Japanese shut-ins. people who don't go outside, and also says Monsieur Show All Surbhi Mukbang 2020. Anyway,
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think we can get into the first topic. The reason probably all of you clicked. Spotify Wrapped, was that what it's called?
Yeah, it's either the year in review, decade wrap, depending on which playlist that you chose or what service you used. Yeah, are we getting into it?
Yeah, let's get into it.
Well, let's get into it. So I'm sure a lot of you listening had the experience in the past week of logging into Spotify and anxiously awaiting your decade wrapped or year wrapped little slideshow presentation. And this year especially, they made it on the mobile app, so it basically looks like an Instagram story that's about your year in music and even your decade in music. And it was in the same 48-hour window. I felt like everyone on social media was either posting screenshots or telling us who their favorites were, showing us playlist. And there was a certain sense of, I guess we could say, stunting or bragging from people kind of confidently showing how good their taste were or complaining about how bad their taste were. Now, one interesting part about this is that there's been a sort of Cold War versus Spotify and Apple for the past couple years. Mm-hmm. And this is an instance where Spotify just outright won. Apple has a similar feature, but you can't share it. Meaning that you could look at your own Apple account and it'll show you your year in review, but you can't then post it all over social media and show everyone else. So Spotify figured out a brilliant way to tap into our own kind of cultural narcissism and promote their brand heavily without paying any money for that. And I don't know about you all, but I was excited about it. I think every year now I wait for my year in review playlist. And this year especially was really exciting because you got to see your whole decade. And I actually got a little emotional watching my slideshow because it said, in 2010, here's what you were listening to. In 2011, in my mind, I was like, oh, that was that year in grad school where I was sad because of this. And that was the year where I had more friends and we were having fun. And that was the year where, yeah, it was. And there was like songs that I was like, truly there was, your top 5 songs this year. And there's times where I was like, oh, that's a song I listened to when that person broke my heart. And I listened to it on repeat. It was Slayer. No, I'm kidding.
We all know it's Modest Mouse.
Yes, more closer to that. But the weird thing about it is, right? I don't know. I care a lot about this. As the slideshow was going, I was like, oh, please be good. Please be good. Please let my taste be impressive. And even unconsciously, there's this desire to be affirmed in your own taste by the algorithm of a multi-billion-dollar corporation. Now, I know what music I like. Like, you could just ask me, Michael, what artists do you like? And I could tell you 5 artists that I like. I could tell you which songs that I like. I could even look at my own Spotify just to see what I'm listening to the most. But there's something about the affirmation of Spotify telling you what your personality is via music that's so intoxicating and people have been so excited about. And I think the 2 main reactions I've seen on social media are people, like I said before, bragging and kind of being like, look how good and cool my tastes are, or people getting upset about getting something they don't want. Basically something that doesn't affirm the narrative they tell themselves about who they are in terms of cultural consumption. And one of the biggest examples I saw is multiple people really mad that they had Drake on their list as one of their most listened to things. And it was multiple people who were like upset. Good for Drake, I guess. But I think the interesting question, or the thing I'm curious what you all think about, like, what does it mean that we get so excited about a brand's algorithm telling us what we like and who we are?
Surbhi, you want to start on that?
Yeah, I don't know. So when I think about it, I remember times when like people get so delighted when you tell a story about them. So I was with a group of friends a couple weeks ago, and one person was telling a story about another person, like something funny that happened. And that person was just sitting there like shining, like, oh my gosh, like that's how you see me. That's how you saw that experience.
Yeah.
And this person wasn't even in a good light. I mean, the person came off pretty bad, but just the fact that they heard another person's perspective, I think that's what's intoxicating. And so when a brand does it, it's sort of the same thing. Like, we all have these ideas of ourselves. And when we have someone else tell us how they view us, it's interesting, or in some cases disturbing.
Definitely. I mean, I felt like that. I've spent the past year, if I talk to new people and like, what sort of music do you like? My canned response has been rap music and the Grateful Dead. And then Spotify told me that all I listen to is rap music and the Grateful Dead, and it made me feel real good. So I was that friend in the corner who was like, I am what I say I am. Yeah.
Was there any moments, any like regrets? Like one year I listened to, I don't know why, a lot of Alt J, and I can't stand Alt J now. I don't know why. I think I watched a parody video of Alt J, and it really just exposed like what that style is, and I was like, I'm not interested anymore.
I mean, I had a year, I think it was 2 years ago, where I was actively like producing and doing audio for a lot of different live comedy shows. And I was always using my Spotify account to like play walk-on music and songs beforehand. And I was playing a lot of stuff that aren't things that I like, but things that I thought would make people happy or related to a certain act. So when I saw some of that on my algorithm, I was like, that doesn't count. That wasn't me listening to it. And it made me think, I wish there was a mode where I could click on Spotify. Like, not really though. Like, I'm listening to this, but this isn't really me. But then it is really me, I guess.
It's interesting that you talk. So actually today on Medium, and I'm not writing it, but Amanda wrote this great piece, how the Spotify rap should be a little creepier to people because Spotify is just bragging about the insane amount of data they've collected on you.
Yeah.
To the point where like we've all seen the mood playlist, like pumped up, whatever. But essentially, that is just an excuse for advertisers can target you based on your mood. Mm-hmm. So if you're working out, like pump up jams for exercise, they can put on an ad for Peloton or something like that. Or like if you're in a depressed mood, hashtag feel your way. Maybe you get some Burger King ads or something like that. But not only that, like they can in sort of communications to advertisers and internally, they brag about how, advertisers are always trying to like decode people and figure out like what their innermost desires are. And they say, and Spotify brags that music is like a gateway to that innermost person, right? I would not be surprised if they could figure out your voting habits by,
I'm sure they could.
listen to. They can certainly figure out your mood. They can probably figure out what kind of like other shit you're into. And so just collecting all of that and selling it to lots of advertisers, which, every streaming platform ever is doing this. But just brazenly being like, here it is.
Well, and something you said, and if this is in Amanda's article, sorry to step on her toes, but they did something a year or two ago that was like your throwback playlist. And it was basically predicting songs that you would have loved like 15 years ago. So for me, it was like my high school years. I didn't have Spotify in high school. Spotify didn't exist in high school, but they made a playlist of the songs they predicted I would have liked as a teen. And it was insane in how perfect it was in terms of being like a lot of very popular like rap music of the late 90s, early 2000s, but then a few random like indie rock or emo songs that were the artists that I listened to at that point in my life, and things that weren't like one another. It's not like the Get Up Kids and DMX have a lot in common. So
right. It wasn't like you listened to a ton of emo music. It was just like, this is my one jam. It's Hey There Delilah.
Yeah, something like that. Basically, not that bad. That was like second wave emo. I was a part of an earlier generation of that. Thank God. But no, but their ability to use data on us now to really accurately even predict what we were like 10, 15, 20 years ago is shocking. I don't think critically about it too much because I'm like, oh, it's a great playlist. But it's pretty wild.
Yeah. Some people in the comments on the live stream are talking about private listening, which hides your music recommendations, which I use ever since I was listening to a very vulgar song by a very vulgar band, and someone just screenshot it and posted on my Facebook. Anyway, when you're in private listening, they still collect your data to sell to advertisers. It only hides it from your friends, which is just a good caveat to know.
Wait, how did someone screenshot it?
Well, no, because in the feed, this is before I put my private settings on.
Yeah,
I'll just say it. The band is called Anal Cunt, and they've got a lot of very provocative sounding songs.
Mom, turn this off. Mom, if you're listening, stop.
Just a side note. People thought that the lead singer was joking and having just like terrible song names. like one of which is literally called Hitler was a pretty nice guy. But then people figured out that he wasn't joking and actually thought all these things. So that person isn't cool who's in that band. So
Oh my God, this is like a roller coaster of emotions.
anyway, someone screenshotted me listening to that band and thought it was funny that I was listening to these songs and posted on my Facebook. And I was like, I don't want people knowing this.
That's crazy though, because that's so hard. And I think idealistically, I'd want to listen in private mode because I don't want people to have all my data. And another way, I love that they curate 6 different playlists every week for me, in all the different subgenres of music I listen to, and I don't have to put the effort in.
But they still do that because I don't share my.
Oh, so it means that they'll still make your playlist via your algorithm. They just don't give your listening data to corporations?
No, sorry.
To your
when you're in
peers.
private mode, like when you see like Michael Burns is listening to Drake.
Well, I didn't know this was a thing anyways, that people could see what I was listening to. I'm shaking now.
Yeah. So they know everything. We know how much Drake you listen to.
I do a little bit though.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not going to make a Michael Jackson joke.
Wow. Wait, did you all see, this is a very big little side note, and I forget who published this article. Someone can Google it. Came out yesterday somewhere, and it was on the listening habits of canceled artists, and basically about there's a few artists that got canceled this year, Michael Jackson, R. Kelly, some others, but how we haven't stopped listening to them at all, and even though we might not talk about them as much in terms of like radio play, online streaming, all that sort of stuff, we still love horrible men's music because we're monsters.
I feel a little bit better when they're dead because they're not getting any, like, you know.
Yeah.
Like, if you listen to any classical music, all those people are monsters, but they are in no way financially benefiting.
No royalties, yeah.
Yeah, but I feel better. Like, I feel like if my royalties are actively going to building R. Kelly's sex dungeon, I feel bad about that. So, like, I get it, but...
Yeah, what is up with that sex dungeon?
Yeah, well...
Let's talk about the... No.
Anyway, I think... anything else to add except stuff about sex dungeons?
No, you made it weird. I don't want to talk about music anymore.
Thanks, Alec.
All right, what a weird and down note to end this topic and get into our sponsor of the day.
Yeah.
This episode, sorry, let me bring up my little notesies. What is
Oh,
it?
yes.
Oh,
Sorry.
yeah, sorry. So before we get into the next topic is going to be the Hollywood Walk of Fame star for Chevy. But before we get into it, thank you to Mac Weldon for sponsoring this episode. Mac Weldon makes smartly designed men's basics like shirts, hoodies, underwear, and more. As someone who's often overwhelmed when shopping for clothes, I really love their simple shopping experience. You want a hoodie? They've got one hoodie. You want a button-up shirt? They got one button-up shirt. Just simple designs with premium fabrics and the colors you want. The last episode I talked about Mac Weldon, I talked about the Oxford shirt. I'm wearing it right now. I don't know if people on the live stream can see that.
Oh, it's good.
I'm still wearing it. It's in heavy rotation. It's probably when I do laundry the first thing I put on. It's for whether I go to a business meeting and have to look like not a slob, whether I'm hanging out with friends. I wore it to my anniversary dinner last night. Yeah, my girlfriend also loves it. The shirt fabric is designed to keep you extra cool and remove sweat when it's a vapor instead of a liquid. It also has underarm sweat guards. That's for you, Michael Burns, and me, to be honest. I was have been running around Manhattan for weeks now. It's passing the Alex sweat test. I also love their Air Knit X t-shirts, which are great for working out, super comfortable and breathable. And then there's Michael, who's our resident sweat spurt. That's what I'm calling you. He loves their anti-sweat technology. The underwear, it's got silver in it sometime, or
yes.
one version of it. Antimicrobial, keeps you dry, keeps the bacteria at bay. It manages the swamp that is your nether regions, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So you can get 20% off your first order. Visit macweldon.com and enter the promo code Wisecrack. We've got a link in the description, but again, macweldon.com, promo code Wisecrack. I also, for all you live people, where's the camera? It's right there. It's somewhere. It's right. Sorry. There it is. All right. With that being said, let's get into the Hollywood Walk of Fame. You know it. It's those stars in Hollywood. As a resident Los Angeles.
Well put.
It's the star. Everyone, the famous people get them. So
It's on Hollywood Boulevard and some adjacent streets in Hollywood where there are stars on the sidewalk to commemorate people that are famous in the entertainment industry. Sorry, I figured as the Hollywood local, I would say that.
Yeah, I was really leaning on you for that one. But anyway, here's from a Guardian article. This is a quote. The Chevy Suburban has become the first inanimate object to receive a brass and terrazzo star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame. The Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, which administers the Walk of Fame, chose the car for its appearance in more than 1,750 movies and its appearance in a film for every year since 1960. Ronna Godbin, the president and CEO of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce, declined to comment when asked if Chevrolet had ever donated to the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. Quote, and this is my favorite, quote, "I don't think that's relevant to your article," she said.
That's pretty awesome.
Also worth noting, this kind of honorary for non-celebrities has gone to like the LA Times and the Dodgers and I think Disneyland. And so here's some tweet reactions to it. Quote, "I legit thought this was a joke. I was wrong." Also, quote, "Of all marketing stunts I've seen in my life, this one ranks among the stupidest." And the final tweet we have here is this for its star role in climate change? Yeah, that's a funny joke. Mike Surbhi, as residents of LA / a place near LA that I don't fully understand, what's the deal with that area? You said it was on Hollywood Boulevard. What do the locals think of it?
I mean, it sucks. I used to work right by there and have to get off a train right by there. It's a part of town where not a lot of people that actually live here spend a lot of time, very tourist heavy. Lots of Europeans in white pants taking pictures. I don't know why, but Europeans
Why white
wear...
pants?
I don't know. Someone on YouTube can jump in. I feel like it's a lot of like German types in white pants taking pictures. But it's pretty dumb. It's not like the nicest street, and then also the people that get the stars, they even have to like pay money, so they like give
$13,000 or $30,000.
30, yeah. So I mean, it's like an honor, but you get money out of it. The only time I was mad I wasn't there is one day I got off the train and I saw they were giving a star out, and I avoided it because I thought I'd have to walk through all the people. Get to the office, turns out it was Guy Fieri getting a star and Matthew McConaughey giving a talk about his friendship with Guy Fieri, and I swear to God, I would have been like the people that saw Jesus in Galilee preaching the word. I would have felt like that, fallen at my feet and followed Guy to his death. But I just went to the office like a dumb fuck. But it's like an area that I think is primarily for tourists these days.
It's like your Times Square. And I remember
Yeah.
one time Jacob, who I believe is listening to this right now, took me to Froyo. And it was around there, and I was like, "Oh, I'm at the Star Place." But there's just people on the street asking you if like you want free shots, which is a thing that happens in Times Square. That's always a scam. Or like, free shots if you pay this $20 cover charge. It's all just like dumb gimmicks to get any tourist off the street.
Yeah, that's the worst. Our kind of Times Square area is like Hollywood and Highland. And and that's where you have like the people dressed up like Marvel characters you can take pictures with, and street performers, and
It's very gross, though.
Yeah,
I would not recommend that anybody.
It's not the best. So the Suburban, if anything, isn't that big of an honor for it. I think it's not going to increase the brand magnitude of the Chevy Suburban.
Yeah. So the reason I'm interested, and we've talked about this a lot, so I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but I'm interested in it because it's kind of, it's in one sense meant to honor like culture and art and people who produce art, whether they're actors, musicians, etc. Instead, there is literally a corporation and their car product, which apparently has done big contributions to art. The thing is that like, and other people point out, like, I think the Mustang has been in more movies, and also I don't care about that because obviously cars are important in movies, but it's not like if we didn't have the Chevy Suburban or the Ford Mustang that we wouldn't be able to have the movies. We wouldn't be able to have the movies we like if we didn't have the directors and the filmmakers and the actors. And I don't give two shits about the car or the corporation involved in marketing it. So there's that sort of gross Adventures in Late Capitalism, which, by the way, I found this because Mike Rugnetta, PBS Idea Channel, tweeted this hashtag Adventures in Late Capitalism. So there's that. And I also, I was doing some research, and you spoke to this a little bit about, Mike, but this is from a Vice article by Dave Schilling. says the process of receiving a star is even more complicated. A prospective applicant must be nominated by a third party, a fan, a friend, an agent, or a total stranger. That third party fills out a form, and if assuming the star agrees to the nomination, the Chamber of Commerce votes on which applications they'll accept. They accept about 20 to 24 people. Those that get picked then have to pay a whopping $30,000 for the ceremony and installation of their star. That's pocket change for the Channing Tatums of the world, but every so often, someone is picked who can't afford the cost of being honored. Star Trek's James Doohan, who played Scotty, had to solicit donations in order to afford his star, which, according to his son, was a bargain at $15,000 back in 2003. Poor Scotty.
That's great.
I'm also just kind of, because Chamber of Commerce's in general, I mean, some of them are fine. Like, you know, it's a bunch of businesses getting together in small towns to help business. But a lot of times they're gross, and they just like lobby for their gross like business interest. And so even the Hollywood Walk of Fame was like a bunch of businesses getting together, like, oh, how can we make more money for our businesses by creating this tourist trap? And so I don't know. I think the whole institution, it seems, is suspicious. But this is even more suspicious. And yeah.
Does anyone even care about these things? Like, I would never think I need to go get myself a Chevy because they just got a star on the Hollywood Walk of Fame.
Millions of people go every year. So I mean, like,
I'm
not
we're talking
saying
about it right now. Like, we're discussing the Chevy Suburban on this, and that's because of the star. So we're building brand consciousness right now. Someone who's listening on the stream has probably been thinking of an SUV for their family of 5, and now they're like, you know what? It has a star on the Walk of Fame. I might as well.
Why not? Yeah. I mean, millions of people go there. Also, as I was researching it, apparently LA for international tourists is one of the most commonly cited, most disappointing tourist destinations, partly because of the the Walk of Fame.
Well, because no one goes to the right places. I will just say, if I was from another country and came here and did the stuff that like the city tells you you're supposed to do, I would think that it was crap. But there is good stuff here. Everyone should come. Just ask me, and I'll tell you what to do.
Just taco places, really, right?
A lot of eating to be, if I'm honest. Yeah, you're gonna be pretty big when you get back and have to work on your saturated fats when you get home.
I really dislike all of these sorts of awards and the fact that you have to pay for them. My employer just got listed on a few different websites and lists for like top 100 places to work or whatever, but you have to pay like this really crazy fee of, I can't remember what it is, but it's something like $20,000 just to be considered or something. And so to me, that just feels like, before I knew this, when I was looking for a job, I would look at these lists and think like, oh, well, they've been nominated, like they're on the list for top 50 places to work or like best culture or whatever. And now you just know that they just pay to be on the list.
Yeah, it's like that in so many areas these days. Even like best restaurant list, it's only the restaurants with the publicist who get in touch with the media organizations to go there and stuff. Like, nothing's real.
Yeah, we get emails all the time from like award. I mean, they're, I guess, real awards, but like any asshole could be like, I'm creating the web awards for best podcast about culture. You've been nominated, just pay like a $200 processing fee and like, you know, you might win. But even the more legit ones are all like that. There's all an application fee, sometimes not as much. And God, I don't remember what CEO it was, but some very famous CEO was like rip shit pissed at his marketing team because he didn't end up on the Forbes 30 under 30. And I guess like there's a whole game of that, of like going to the right parties and meeting the right people to like even, you know, it's not an actual indication of who's under 30 doing important shit. It's like who has the networking skills. And I don't know if Forbes charges an application fee, but if they do, also who can shell out for that.
No good.
Anyway, should we go on to growth mindset?
Let's keep growing.
Yeah.
Sure. So I read this article recently in the Financial Times about Carol Dweck, who is a psychologist whose work has significantly influenced education systems in the corporate world. She developed this theory that there are two mindsets, growth and fixed. The fixed mindset is the idea that intelligence is static, and in order to appear smart, people will not pursue challenges. They'll give up really easily. They will feel threatened by the successes of others. And It's a common mindset because we often use trigger words and trigger phrases when in developmental years. So, for example, parents will tell their children, "You're so smart," or "I'm so impressed that you did so well on the exam." So people start to feel like they have to appear smart. And when we use these trigger words, we're essentially putting people on a pedestal. And in order to remain on that pedestal, people will organize their life and narrow their life's activities to only pursue those actions that make them successful or smart. And that leads to a fixed mindset. Like, this is as smart as I'm going to get, and I can't improve, so I need to only pursue the things that make me feel good. So maybe sort of like a big fish in a small pond mentality. And this is a quote from her book, Mindset, The New Psychology of Success, when developing the other mindset called the growth mindset. She says, "There's another mindset in which these traits are not simply a hand you're dealt and have to live with, always trying to convince yourself and others that you have a royal flush when you're secretly worried it's a pair of tens. In this mindset, the hand you're dealt is just the starting point for development. This growth mindset is based on the belief that your basic qualities are things that you can cultivate through your efforts. So if you have a growth mindset, you believe that your abilities can develop through effort, and you have a tendency to learn from setbacks and challenges. You're inspired by the successes of others, and you have a powerful passion for learning. You also are less concerned about the appearance of intelligence." And what I learned through reading this article is that we're all works in progress and have the ability to change. And I think sometimes it's easy for us to get caught up in this whirlpool of comparison, especially as we look at our peers who have taken diverging paths that have led to success. And we should remember that we have the capacity to become more intelligent. It's just a matter of effort and interest. So I don't have a profound question to ask either of you about this topic. It's more of just, have you experienced a fixed mindset or growth mindset? And have you noticed that you've shied away from challenges and not taken certain steps because you're concerned about the appearance of intelligence?
I actually came across Carol Dweck Rules, I think. I haven't actually read her stuff, but I used to work for a psychologist who's really into Carol Dweck and talk about her work. And I really like it because I was definitely poisoned from a young age by like parents who'd be like, "Alec, you're so smart," or like, "Our family's so smart," and shit like that. And this is either her work or sort of work tangential to hers. But the growth mindset stuff talks about kids. If you are like, "You're so smart, you're going to nail this test," versus kids who are like, "Oh, you studied really hard, you're going to nail this test." And so one is about kind of talking or encouraging them on the process versus their innate talent. And what happens is that when kids who are told they're so smart fail at a thing, and then you give them another test, they fuck up even harder because their whole like world is shattered and they lose all sense of confidence. Whereas the kids that you sort of encouraged by the process of it, of like studying or preparing or whatever, after they deal with challenges, like they fail or get a question wrong, they always bounce back better. And so this was essentially my entire childhood of being told I was like the smartest fucking kid ever. And I was kind of smart. I don't know. I was good at taking tests. And it's just a thing that I, as an adult, have had to kind of like unprogram my brain. Even today, like sometimes people ask like what differentiates Wisecrack from other people. And I never say like, "Oh, our writers are smarter than other people." But I say like, "Oh, we've read more books than like them." And there might be people who've read more books than us. And in that case, I got to fucking get cracking. But I think it's just a much better way to focus on, I guess, the process rather than sort of the innateness. And sorry, what was the second part of the question?
Just whether you have experienced this, and have you not taken any challenges because you've been afraid that you may not appear smart?
Oh, not even smart, but like I was really into art and drawing when I was a kid. And then I was like, because I was so smart, I was going to fucking teach myself. And of course I never got good. So I was a great drawer at like 6 years old, and by 10 I was dog shit. And then when I realized other people were better than me, I stopped. And to this day, I'm just a horrible artist. I have no sense of color or design or any of those things. So that's my life.
Yeah, I've never read. Is it Dweck? Is the name of the author? Dweck, cool. Yeah, I never read her. Sounds really interesting, and I like that idea a lot. I've recently been going through a stage where I'm convinced, not to get too nerdy, that the philosopher who was the most right in the history of philosophy was maybe Aristotle. And one of the things I like about Aristotle, Alec gave me a look, we can talk about it later, is this emphasis on sort of our existence and ethical existence being a constant journey where we never really get at the end of all things, but we're aiming at sort of goals and processes and constantly becoming ideally better versions of who we are. And I like that because as I get, I guess, a little bit older, something I'm constantly thinking about is like, what is the difference between people I look at who are around my age or older, who I look up to, who I find interesting, are people who I want to be like? And then what traits do I notice about people who, to be honest, I don't want to be like? And normally it tends to be the people who are stagnant and lock into who they are at a younger age, and they have the same interests, maybe stop reading, exploring, learning, growing, or kind of just in autopilot mode, are the people where I'm like, oh, I would rather get sent out on an ice float than live like you. And people who I look at as really interesting are people that, as they get older, are picking up new hobbies, learning about new things, and even pushing themselves socially to like meet different types of people, go different types of places, have that expansive worldview. And it's something I find really cool. So in that sense, I really like that. In terms of failures, my version of art is language. Many times in my life, I've tried to actively learn a new language, and I tend to always fail because it's hard, and I'm lazy enough to bail when things are hard. You know, things involving like books or ideas, I'm like, this is great, makes sense to me, let's go. But every time I've actively tried to learn a language, I've bailed like a coward, and it's something that I'm worried if I don't do soon, I'll regret for the rest of my life.
Yeah. Sorry, go ahead.
So I have the opposite thing. My mom actually did exactly what Carol Dweck said parents should do, and praise effort and like determination and perseverance and things like that. But the problem is that now I have this warped view of myself that I feel like I could do anything.
You can.
But I feel like if they're like, you know, when you're in a, like you watch a movie and there's like two buildings that are super far apart, but somehow the character runs and like jumps and like makes it to the other side. I am convinced that I could do that.
You are
or,
Jason
like,
Bourne.
Yeah, like I'm convinced, like, no, if I just run fast enough, like if I try hard enough, I'll get there. I'll do it. So I have to remind myself that like there are limitations.
If the dude abides donates enough, can we do a special Surbhi physical challenges episode where we
People are gonna be sad.
This is why you think you can do mukbang. You're like, I can eat 5 pounds of French fries. Like, why not?
Exactly.
You're gonna have to sign some waivers though that might make Wisecrack not liable for your death, but it'll be fun.
It would be interesting. I mean, it'll be part of my yearly wrap up, like the last wrap up of
the
my life.
slideshow that plays it. Never mind. Wait, so you think that that's too? You think that the effect of that then is you're not realistic enough about what you're capable of, and that's a bad thing?
I think a little bit. Sometimes I feel like it is. Like, I don't know why. I think I just maybe it's just like I took confidence to like a new level where I'm like, oh shit, yeah. Like, if I were an opera singer, I would be the best opera singer of all time. Like, I bet I could opera sing right now. So I don't know. Like, I think there needs to be a little bit of a balance, or maybe like stem your child's like overflowing confidence.
Do you find that makes you at all, I'm going to get personal here. Does that make you at all like judgy of other people, that you have this attitude that you're capable of anything? Does that ever lead you to look at others as like failures or weak? Because you're just like, I could do that.
No. And that, so when I talk to people,
latte art,
yeah.
Pleb.
I could totally make latte art, but
See, there you go.
When other people express their limitations, like they say like, oh, I couldn't do that. They have said that they like talking to me because I I'm like their biggest cheerleader, where I'll say, no, of course you can. What do you mean? Like, you're completely capable of that. So it's the opposite, where I feel like I try to like boost them up, and I'm like, of course you could do latte art. Like, if you want to like do mukbang. Like, you can do this.
I
wonder.
I wonder
I don't know.
I wonder if the middle ground is like, so growth mindset, like you can do most of what you put your mind to, but also teaching them statistics like, oh, you want to be a famous stand-up comedian. Well, to do that, not only do you have to like put in the 10,000 hours of effort, but also you have to like win some weird lottery of like 1,000 other people are going to put in that same amount of effort, and one of you will become famous. And same thing with like becoming, a famous opera singer. Like, it is the effort plus just cool random chance.
Well, so what my mom has started to do, like I think 10 years ago, she started doing this, is she would gently remind me, there's only one president. And that was like a way to like bring me back to earth. Like, she was like, there's only one president. And I'm like, so you're saying that I can't be president? And she's like, well, look at your career. Like, do you think that you're capable of being president?
Yeah. I think you're capable, Surbhi, and I would love to start like a weird dystopian political movement with you're the face of it.
Surbhi 2024.
Well, 2020 is coming up. I mean, why can't I win this year?
Do you have like millions of dollars to spend on TV campaigns?
No, but I can marry someone rich.
But you have to be on the ballot in a bunch of the primary states already, and I think you're not. I think you might have missed some deadlines.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
Sorry. Anyway, I think we should get into the mailbag and voicemails. I know Surbhi's, we're running tight on time here.
We got to get her out. She has a presidential primary debate to go to. Should we just get right into it?
Yeah. If anyone wants to leave us a voicemail for when we return, the number is 1-213-534-8807. 1-213-534-8807. And the emails you can send to culturebinge@wisecrack.co.
Cool. Let's start with the emails and we'll do the voicemails. Sure. Is that cool, Alec? Great.
Yeah.
So this is from Carrie. It says, hey, all. Just want to start out by saying I listen to literally all of your podcasts and really enjoy your content. Also, sorry, this is kind of a long email. I am a classical musician, and I would love to hear you discuss a huge talking point for me and some of my colleagues about music and current culture, and all art for that matter. Since the dawn of iTunes and heightened by media algorithms, many people only listen to music that is similar to what they are already listening to. We were talking about this earlier. Drake. This causes a couple of problems for artists. One, it's harder to be an amateur that makes money and builds up a fan base. And two, historically, art was used as a way of communicating a point of view. And now people are only listening to like minds, which leads to other styles and opinions being blocked out. Some want it and others are ignorant to it. Like I said, as a 26-year-old classical musician, this is a struggle as I'm constantly trying to find relevancy in my and younger age groups. Also, as an observer of other humans, I wonder if this advances the rift in people not being able to understand and get along with others with diverse opinions. Thanks for all you do. I respect your authoritas. Hold on.
Respect my authority.
Best wishes, Carrie.
This is a great email. I thought about this like a lot in context of the YouTube algorithm, but I guess not like Spotify playlist, in that you watch one cooking video and then you get like 18 million of the same kind of cooking video, and you're essentially put in this kind of like pre-programmed track of what you will be watching for the next 6 months. And with Spotify, I found like cool new music on there, but again, it's like cool new music that's related to it, and I find some of the best musicians that I find will be like in the soundtrack of something, or like on a TV show. I'm like, oh, what's that song? I never would have thought to listen to that. Or if I'm at a concert and there's an opener, that might be something unexpected. I found some of my favorite artists that way. Or sometimes like I was at a concert and I learned that the band was influenced by this other artist, and I just started listening to them on Spotify. Now, like, I'm super into them and was talking about them on this podcast. I'm going to pronounce it wrong. Fila Kuti. But yeah, it's kind of sad. And I imagine it must be, I mean, I don't know if this fixed if more people would be listening to classical music, and I love classical music. I think people are like, oh, that's old, and I don't like it as a result.
Well, I love classical music, and I think, Carrie, you're highly relevant, and we're in similar age groups, and I go to the symphony every month or whenever my local orchestra is performing, and I'm so grateful for people like you that are continuing these traditions that were created so many years ago. So I appreciate what you do.
Yeah, and I think I'm not I love classical music, Carrie, just so you know, but I think I'm more of a jazz head in terms of types of music that you really got to see live. But it's something I even have tried to actively do more recently is go to live music events, because it'd be a sad world when stuff like that doesn't exist. And I think if we have a world where you can't go see jazz or classical or whatever it might be. So I think that's something, everyone listening, we should all go to more stuff in our communities that's live and that's art we want to support. Oh, Alec, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was just going to say one thing that I've kind of been doing is that there's like a few venues in Brooklyn that like I really like. They put like I've never really been to a bad show. The Brooklyn Academy of Music, King's Theater, and sometimes they don't have great descriptions of things. So I'll just like buy tickets to like a pretty, always in the balcony, super cheap, whatever. And I've seen some wild shit. Like I saw a Dadaist performance of an Aristophanes or Euripides play called the Bacchaea, and it was fucking bizarre, and I loved it. But I've also been like, I think just, if you have the money to do that sort of thing, just like looking what's up, and the fact that it's made it to your local theater is probably like a good stamp of approval, especially if you live in a big city where it's like super hard to get into those places. Like, I don't really think the Lincoln Center is going to put on garbage all the time, or whatever that Disney place is in LA. What's that place called?
The Walt Disney Concert Hall?
Yes, yeah. That's what I meant.
But yeah, and I think too, like for the most part, I rarely regret going to see live music or live theater. Even if it's not the best, it's still, not to get too weird here, it makes you feel more human. Like going to see an average play or an okay classical piece feels more engaging than watching like a pretty good show on Netflix or something like that. And I think something about experiencing art in a collective environment is important. So I think Carrie should inspire everyone listening. This is our challenge for you for the rest of 2019. Go do something. Look something up. See something in your neighborhood, your community, your city. And if you live in a real small town, then you got to put the thing on. How about that?
Yeah.
And it's possible you don't have to think that these sorts of activities like plays, musicals, concerts, and things are only for the wealthy. They have tickets that are student tickets. They have free concerts like in the community. Like check out your local orchestra or whatever and see where they're performing.
And a lot of orchestras do like rehearsal things. I know the LA Symphony Orchestra has a thing, and it's some afternoons and mornings you can literally go for free, watch them rehearse. So fun stuff there. And I'm glad Carrie got us talking about this. Should we move on to, thank you so much, Carrie. We got an email from Chris. He says, hey, Wisecrack, Chris here. Longtime listener of the show, love what you all are doing every week. I'm emailing about this segment of your podcast where you were talking about the OK Boomer trend, and more specifically, Michael's point of view, that's me, about how millennials are killing it. I was on TikTok when the trend first started appearing, and it was almost always being used in an almost ironic, flippant way to respond to the futility of trying to debate with older generations that resort to hyperbole over facts. It stayed like that more or less until the major news picked it up, where all of a sudden people without the same mindset tried to force it to fit their needs. Best example of this is a New York Times op-ed by Farhad Manjoo, where he says that all of his energy is misguided and that youth should be saying, okay, billionaire instead as a way of raising ire against income equality. You know what? As a 20, that was me that said, you know what, because I was getting frustrated. I wasn't Chris. As a 21-year-old college student, I have my own thoughts on this, but wanted to hear what you thought about older generations trying to co-opt the ideas and trends of younger Gen Zers. I also really want to know Michael's thoughts on why we are so great. But anyways, enjoy your holiday break and keep up the great work, Chris L.
Why are they so great?
I think Gen Z is so great because they have really great senses of humor. I like a lot of the funny TikTok videos I've seen are absurdist and just weird in a way that I feel like my generation tried really hard to, whether it was like mimic pop culture or do things that were, I don't know, more like copying things that already existed. I think they have a really fun idiosyncratic sense of humor. I think a lot of the music coming out of people in that generation is also really cool and blurs genre lines in really interesting ways. Not to get too into it as well, I think young people have like really good and interesting politics. And if you look at numbers of who's supporting things involving like climate change or certain progressive policies, a lot of young people there. Yeah, I just like them. I think they're a good generation. And I think that one point Chris makes is important, is that there is that tendency of people to co-opt their ideas and trends, which I think is super corny. I think we should appreciate them. Like, I like watching their TikToks or seeing the cool stuff they do, but I'm not out here trying to do that. And I think some of the, no offense, corniest shit I've seen recently are people in their 30s trying to make their own TikTok videos that mimic that sort of stuff or whatever it might be. So I think we can appreciate that generation without trying to like co-opt them or like Farhad Manjoo from this New York Times piece, like speak down to them in some lame parental way.
I think I read that article, a similar article, and it wasn't that bad. I was kind of like, oh yeah. Because an article I read, and I don't know if it was that one, was like, we can talk about how boomers have hoarded all the wealth, but actually a lot of it's like the really rich boomers who are still fucking over the poor boomers. But anyway, I will say another thing about Zoomers plus millennials is dictionary.com. This is almost my topic. The word of the year is existential. And just as like a guy who writes about philosophy on the internet, thank you, world, for making what I do vaguely relevant. I now can explain to people what I do.
No, but there's a reason that word's up, because they're a generation that's like curious about big ideas, and I think is more questioning of like dominant cultural narratives than some other generations. So that's great.
Cool. Well, let's go on to the last email, right?
Last email. Yeah, we'll get through this. I know we got to go. Okay, this is email from Brett. He uses a word early on I'm going to get wrong. Brett, I'm sorry. Says, email from Brett. Hey there, Wisecrack gang, especially the Duke of Diaphoresis,
I think
Michael
that's right.
Burns.
I'm not sure, but I think that's the right pronunciation.
Okay, and we'll assume that has something to do with sweat glands.
It's a medical condition where you sweat too much, I believe.
Yeah. Okay. Brett here. Want to share an interesting perspective on the workplace romance issue brought up in regards to the McDonald's CEO. I actually work for a very large, one of the top employers in my state company, and met my now wife at work. Ooh. Funny enough, it took about 2 to 3 months before we actually went on a date while both of us were actually reviewing our company's policies on workplace romances unbeknownst to each other. We were both in our early to mid-20s and have been together for over 5 years. Congrats. Fortunately for us, we both work in completely unrelated parts of our organization, so there's no conflict of interest. We do have to disclose that we are married and work at the same organization, but it is purely just for the records of our HR departments. I think in this day and age, we are required to give our all to a workplace and organization. And in such a disconnected world we live in, where everyone's much more focused on their phones, followers, etc., meeting someone where you are spending 40 plus hours a week seems to be a more natural occurrence. That being said, I think examples like mine can only be successful if you are a responsible and professional couple, and probably also work in an organization that has thousands of employees. Additionally, I think the higher level you are in an organization, this issue can become a lot more of an issue as to start to separate the power dynamic out of it. Happy to hear your thoughts. Keep up the tegridity. Brett.
Tegrity.
Tegrity.
It's a South Park thing. You wouldn't get it. Yeah, I thought Brett said something pretty interesting, which was what Brett is functionally saying is like, this all is fine and good if you're a responsible professional human being. And I agree, because we talked like a long time originally started as a workplace romance. Burns is the product of one, possibly not exactly ethical, who knows.
Wow.
And so that's fine in large organizations. Like, I think that happens a lot because that is the only place you really meet people. But I just think there's so many shitheads in the world that are going to ruin it for the nice professional people like you, Brett, who are not creeps at the workplace. What do you think, Surbhi?
So I was talking about this last night with a friend of mine who's the VP of engineering at her org, and she was saying that workplace romances are tricky, and the only thing that she bans is having a couple report to the same manager. And she says that can become challenging because if they experience personal problems at home and then they get to work and they don't want to collaborate with each other, or they're complaining to their boss about the other one, that can put the manager in a difficult position. So she said that if people are in different teams or different departments, that she's fine with it. But
What if it's a
the only
direct
thing
report? Is that also?
so that is not okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Because the power dynamic is wrong. Yeah. So that's a problem as well. And I thought that was interesting and something I didn't think about. Like if you both report to the same manager.
Yeah. And I do think like it was an interesting point Brett made that if you're going to expect people to be super committed to a company, spend 40 plus hours a week there, you can't also then tell them they're not allowed to form relationships in that space because where else are you going to do it? But along with the caveats you both said, don't be a jerk about it. Don't abuse that situation. Yeah. We have a couple voicemails. Should we get to those?
Yeah.
Okay. First one's from Kai. And just so everyone knows, we did have to cut it off at a certain point. So that's why it does that. Here we go.
Hey guys, it's Kai calling. I apologize for the wind in advance, but I was just calling about the Culture Binge episode where you guys were talking about the OK Boomer thing and how weird it is. And Surbhi said something that I thought was really poignant, and I immediately had the thought, which is the idea that, like, OK Boomer minimizes the experience of an entire subset of people is true and is harmful in the same way that millennials are killing the diamond industry and millennials are killing vacations and millennials are killing the family restaurant. So it's in a weird way that these two terms that are both completely way too broad for what we're using them for complement each other in the fact that if someone were to go, millennials are destroying local coffee shops, then your reply very easily could be, okay, boomer. And they just happen to work out that way. And I think that speaks to the fact that it's really easy to just overreach for an entire subset of people because a very loud minority.
Yeah. Sorry, it was just a long voicemail, but it was a good one. What do you think?
Yeah, that was the point that I was trying to make, is that I think that both sides have a point, but I don't like it when people shit on millennials and say things like we're lazy or we constantly want a raise or things like that. I think that's a generalization that's harmful, but I also don't like it when we say, okay, boomer, like maybe people have a point, and I think that we should be respectful and at least listen. And words have power, phrases have power, and I think that if we wield them in a way, it could be harmful, and it could lead to, like Kai said, we could diminish an entire generation.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's an interesting point there, but I think there's a difference between like a cultural logic or ideology and individuals. So I think there's an ideology of boomerism or millennialism or whatever that are distinct from individuals. And I think there's aspects of boomer logic that are very bad, but criticizing that doesn't necessarily criticize, everyone born of parents who were in the war in the same way to say that, millennials are killing whatever it might be. There's a way to criticize cultural trends amongst people in that age group without saying that, all of us are monsters.
Yeah,
So,
like millennials are killing TGI Fridays, thank God. But like I wouldn't point to an individual millennial and be like, you did this. Although you could point to me and do that because I don't. But Chili's is great. No, I'm not going to go into what I like at Chili's. But
don't get me started because I have a whole Chili's thing. Let's save it for another time.
So Surbhi, I think in person, yeah, I don't want to like dismiss, especially in person, a person with a point of view and say like, okay, boomer. When it comes to online discourse, depending on what mood I am and how particularly nihilist I am, I feel like all online discourse is pointless. Like if you're arguing with someone on Twitter, no matter what you say, you're not going to change their mind. And that's different in person. Studies have shown like even like if you're trying to get people to vote for a certain candidate, like talking to them in person is like this amazingly helpful thing. But when boomers, so to speak, are like blowing up your reply, saying something dumb, like I get just wanting to say like, okay, boomer. And that I think is different than, it could be easily utilized in a dumb and dismissive way of people trying to say actual things about other shit, Well,
yeah, and OK Boomer as well. Like it didn't start because a bunch of teens just started being mean to those people. It was because like weird old people were in the replies of teenagers online being like, you're not allowed to want these things, or you're not, call me when you, because there's the whole trend of people being like, when I was 22, I had no debt, owned my own home and had 2 kids. What have you done? And that's like the type of shit that it was in response to. So just in that way, I would say the boomer shot first.
So I think that that's fine. Like, and I understand how this came about. I just think we should be more cautious about applying that to other situations. Like when people are just providing a thought or sharing opinions and things, and we diminish it by saying, okay, boomer.
Yeah, Dev, I don't think anyone should say that, like, because someone's 55 and has an opinion that they're an idiot. You know, I think it's more of like Alec was getting at, a fun online response to people that are just being pedantically jerky. But
yeah,
you're right.
I think that's all the time we have today. Thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Surbhi. Thank you, Michael. Also, it is Tim, our sound engineer's last day. He's got a sweet-ass new job coming. So everyone, I know you don't see him. Tim does a lot of really dope work, makes the show as good as it is. So if everyone could just say nice things about Tim in the comments.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tim.
And he's so kind and lovely to work with. Like, just super nice, always very patient, always helpful, and I'm going to miss him. So yay, Tim, congratulations.
Oh my God. And a cat's waving him goodbye.
Oh gosh.
Well, I'm not going to say anything too nice because I have to physically be here with him. He is a very emotional young man, and I don't want to have to hold him if he starts crying. But good work. Keep your head up. Keep working hard. Don't stop believing. There's only one president.
All of Tim's teammates are so lucky to have him.
Yes.
His new teammate.
Yes. And hopefully he finds workplace romance there.
All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.